as we're getting to the official closing, we have one more keynote for you. And this keynote is about an active cooling project to preserve and restore. We have the founder and also the chief operating officer to join us on stage in a little bit for Real Eyes, because they realize people tell real lies. I'm a rapper in my part-time, that's why. Ladies and gentlemen, help me receive on stage Keen and Pascal. That's right. Come on stage. That's how you do it. That's how we do it.
Thank you, Gillard. How are you guys doing? Good? It's getting a bit late, huh? And we're the last one to present. It's also a bit hot here. I'm sure you think of going for a drink to cool down, but stay with us because we are going to do something to cool you down. We are the ice makers. Our goal is to preserve and restore the Arctic ice to slow tipping points and climate change. This idea was for our founder, Keen, who is here, as he finishes his study. This guy is passionate with snakes and frogs, but then he decided to save the Arctic, and he was lucky enough to find on his path a serial entrepreneur who helped him to make what this company is today. He was also very lucky to find as a partner Cambridge University and their Center for Climate Repair that's working on active solutions to slow down and to cool down the planet. So now I'll let my boss to explain to you what the Arctic is about.
Thank you very much, Pascal. And just to highlight there, Pascal is our COO, obviously an expert project manager, and has overseen many large-scale engineering projects all across the globe. So we're really excited to have him as part of our team. So I'm just going to quickly go over the importance of the ecosystem in the Arctic. As we know, it supports a vast array of life when it comes to wildlife in the Arctic, as well as supporting a way of life for the people in the Arctic. So Arctic communities and wildlife are desperately in need of Arctic sea ice, and as it's starting to deplete, everything about their way of life is changing. So as the Arctic sea ice starts to deplete, we can see that, or we know that even over the last year, the Arctic sea ice has caused the jet stream to change, and we've seen massive wildfires as a result, with that warm air being drawn up along the west coast of the Americas, and causing widespread disaster. So the Arctic itself actually acts like a giant mirror. It can reflect up to 90% of the solar radiation that's incoming from the sun. And unfortunately, it's shrinking so fast that we're losing it at a rate unheard of. You can see there from the right, on your right side, that we've lost almost half of the extent in the summer months from the 80s, which is very scary. So the key figures from here really are the summer sea ice extent. We see here from the 80s down to up to the 2024, which is today, that we've lost just over 50% of that sea ice. And what that means is if we get to a point where we're at less than 1 million square kilometers of sea ice in the summer months, it's a guarantee that we will hit certain tipping points, such as ocean acidification and ocean temperatures getting to a point that won't actually support life anymore. The current projections actually predict that this could happen as early as the 2030s, so in the next decade we could be looking at meeting these tipping points and having to deal with the consequences. So our technique, we say, is as simple as pumping water, because that is all it is. We drill a hole in the ice, we put a pump in there, and we flood the surface layer. How it works is, by flooding the snow layer on top of the sea ice, we get an initial freezing of a layer of ice, but actually the growth that happens naturally as a result of that intervention is much more. So we get a lot of growth then throughout the rest of the winter season through that intervention of flooding the snow layer on top. So we went and tested this approach in Cambridge Bay just this year. We've come back from our second phase of testing. You can see there from the map, we were way up in the Arctic. A lot of our equipment actually went from Montreal, so that's actually the boat journey, or the trip it took to get all the way to the Arctic, which took just over 2 months. The key results from this test were we covered about 4,000 square kilometers. We added roughly about 25 to 30 centimeters, and we created 1,000 tons of sea ice in that area. And this allowed us then to prove that that base approach works, and now we'd start to think more about scalability. As part of the test we did in Cambridge Bay, it was so important that obviously we engaged the local community and we involve them in the process as much as possible so that we can co-create a solution that will be welcomed by all. And I think that's over to you then, Pascal.
Yeah, thank you, Keen. So now to do a recap, we know that the Arctic is an ecosystem that is important to regulate the temperature of the planet. We know that we can make ice with sea and that it works to cool down. Now we need to scale things up because obviously we need to do it on a large scale, which is 1 million square kilometers. You've learned before that in the summertime we have 4 million square kilometers of ice only, and we want to work on recreating 1 million square kilometers of ice per year. We want to do this and we want to study how the ice survives from one season to the next, and also we need to be able to come to the 1 million square kilometer. We need to make ice on an industrial scale. Our idea is to first to preserve the ice and then to grow it back to what it was in the 1980s. So how do we create ice on an industrial level? Well, we plan to use underwater drones. You can see here a photo of an image of the drone we are planning to use. The drone has 3 functions: to navigate under the ice, to drill a hole in the ice, and then to pump water for approximately 10 hours, and then to come back to its base and refuel and do this again. The drones are around 2 meters long. They are fueled by hydrogen and batteries under the sea. Then once there is air, you can use the hydrogen fuel cell to propel the drone. Some numbers: to do 1 million square kilometers per year, we will need 500,000 drones, so 500,000 drones. And the base station where they will be around the Arctic, we will need 1,000 base stations. And that's about 70,000 tons of green hydrogen that we need per year, and probably around more than 10,000 people to work on them. The budget for our 10-year projection is $50 billion, which seems a lot, but actually, compared to the damage due to climate change, it's actually very minor. The gain from re-icing is huge because of the albedo effect. This is our roadmap, 11 years roadmap. We have done already 2 expeditions that we call T1 and T2, where we can explain to you where we have flooded and see how the ice behaves and how they have behaved with the time as well. Can you keep the ice through the season? We are planning a next expedition in November this year and January next year, which is T3. We want to re-ice in different areas and different ways, beginning of the winter, end of the winter, see how it behaves. And a big target is what we call D1 at year 3. D1 will be the first time when we use drones on a large scale. We plan to use 50 drones, and we want to do re-ice on an industrial scale. So we will change scale at D1. D1 is winter 2026, 2027, in 2.5 years. Then after that, we need to build a drone factory because we need 500,000 drones, a bit like a car factory, so we can scale this up until year 11 and be able to get to the maintenance phase, which is 1 million square kilometers per year. The payoff is huge. If we can re-ice 1 million square kilometers per year, it could give more time to decarbonize our economy, probably a few decades. So for a small investment and a little bit of energy, we actually have a huge gain on decarbonization. Our challenges at the moment are designing and building simple and robust drones. So a vehicle that's around 2 meters long, that's propelled by hydrogen and can navigate by itself and talk to each other a bit like bees in a hive or robots in a warehouse. We will need to build floating stations where they can be refueled, that can resist the really harsh winters in the Arctic. We need to go, of course, through maritime and Arctic regulations, which is not easy because there's a council of 8 different countries that have also some political interest. Probably we need to make peace with Russia at that time. And funding is the last of the list of the problems because, as you understand, there will be no more ice in 10 to 15 years, and it's going to take us 10 years to get there. So it's a race against time to get there. And funding, it's probably the easiest problem to solve. Our team, we have a strong team that has been assembled by Kin as a management, and then we have an advisory board with polar science and policy climate regulations specialists, and we also have an independent scientific advisors, including people from the professors from the Cambridge University. I have to say that all of us here, including myself, we're all volunteers. We are not being paid for this. We're working for free for this company because it's a great project. Thank you. By the way, Real Ice is as an open source concept. We want more people to come into the industry and Re-Ice. What we want is to create an industry. And also, we are not for profit structure. What we need now, we need your help because we are in a car manufacturing country, because you understand that the drone is like a drone that can be propelled by hydrogen and work autonomously is like a small car that the automotive industry can do here. I'm sure that you have the skills here, and then you have the talents, and you can help us. We need, of course, a little bit of money to do that, to get to our D1 phase in 2.5 years and get 50 drones and be able to industrialize this. It's probably $20 million. We have our contacts, and thank you so much for your attention. We're going to show you a little video now of our last expedition that was done in January. Okay. Thank you.
So here you see our engineers working on our hydrogen fuel cell power station. And as we traveled out onto the ice with our indigenous guides who kept us safe. And this is our test area actually on the ice.
What's the temperature at this stage?
So it was minus 40 degrees. So doing anything in this temperature is quite a challenge. And we were drilling a hole there to put the pump into the ice. And that is just a visual of inside. So you can actually see the lighter layers are newer ice and the dark layers are old ice.
It's as simple as pumping water. But it must be done on a large scale.
As you can see, it travels over the snow layer and moves relatively quickly, actually, when it's a thin layer. You can see it starts to saturate the snow. And this is actually a phenomenon known as frost flowers, which are actually very rare to occur. We did some measurements then using a 2-inch auger. Take ice thickness, and that's pretty much what we did on our expedition. Thank you.
Thank you.